the spotlight on Media to Africa TV, coming live from Washington, D.C. Today is March the 15th, 2025. Today we have eminent personalities from across the board with a deep knowledge about the West province. This is towards our looking down into the various achievements or the neglect of the current regime after 43 years being at the helm of the Supreme Magistracy. So today we would really dive deep into looking at the broader perspective as we get closer and closer to the 2025 presidential elections in Cameroon. It is very imperative that the grassroots, the people who are going to be making these decisions should be quite knowledgeable about what is happening within their various communities. And so after dealing with the Southwest region last week, today we are focusing on the West region. And we have with me here in the studio Michelle Wamba, who is the SDF North America Communication Officer and a political analyst. He is also professionally, as an individual, is a businessman. He deals with construction and renovation. So if you need to reach out to him, do not hesitate to reach out to Wamba LLC, Wambiko
Improvement LLC.
Improvement LLC. For those of you who have something to do, either renovating your homes or complete building and construction. Also in the studio with me is the permanent consultant, Mr. Kenneth Ndeye. Kenneth, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we have joining us remotely Nestor Nana. Nestor has a deep knowledge of the West region too. So I hope the conversation today is going to be very exciting. The ability for us to look at things that impact the communities as we really narrow down the 2025 elections. So today, Cameroon has degenerated into a political world that is governed and dominated by narcissistic self-gratification, in which motions of support are not only meant to flatter the despot, but are designed to obtain resources or favors for individuals and the regions. Reminiscent of the Ajo years, all national achievements are attributed to the President of the Republic. So I think that it is quite important for us to look at what he has done, the neglect, the complete disregard as far as infrastructure is concerned, the education, the health, and the social aspect of the entire region. Now that does not limit us only into the West region. We would also try to draw comparisons with what is happening in the other region. Is it the general neglect of the country, or you have this pain in particular regions of the country? So once more again, gentlemen, thank you. I will start with Michelle for an opening statement, and then Kenneth, and then we're gonna get to Nestor. Michelle, once again, thank you for answering the call to talk to the spotlight. Our viewers would be very interested to tap into your knowledge of the region and to the socio-political situation in Cameroon. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you so much. Je voudrais m'exprimer d'abord en français. Je vais commencer par dire merci pour l'invitation et surtout dire ma joie d'être ici parmi vous, accompagné de mon frère et ami qu'on se connaît depuis M. Kenneth, et remercier aussi les techniciens de Media 2 Africa pour tout l'important travail qu'ils font pour que cette chaîne soit l'image de l'Afrique ici aux États-Unis et à travers le monde. La thématique qui est à l'ordre du jour est une thématique très enrichissante et surtout qu'elle va beaucoup apporter au plan de notre culture et, et permettre à ce que certains de nos compatriotes qui sont dans le jeu politique aujourd'hui comprennent pourquoi on a souvent des positions plus ou moins accrocheuses face à certaines situations. Depuis que la session de M. Paul Biya en 1982 dans le pouvoir, la région de l'ouest du Cameroun en général, qui est, je voudrais d'abord commencer par sa composante pour que les gens sachent de quoi il s'agit. La région de l'ouest du Cameroun est composée généralement de 4 grandes ethnies. Il s'agit des peuples bamileke, qui sont en majorité, le peuple Bamoun, les Tika, et puis une minorité Mbo, qui commence à partir de Sanchou, dans la Ménois. Et aussi, cette région a un fort caractère grâce au dynamisme de sa population dans la politique, dans l'économie, son rayonnement ne souffre plus d'aucun doute. Dans le social, par l'organisation des populations de l'Ouest, leur mode de vie, et dans la culture aussi, et partout dans le monde où on passe, on remarque toujours une marque qui identifie l'homme de l'Ouest. J'en voudrais par exemple, ça fait 2 Jeux olympiques successivement où le Ndop, qui est originaire de la région de l'Ouest, est reconnu ou alors est la tenue officielle de la délégation camerounaise. Donc, l'Ouest Cameroun est une région qui est partie intégrante dans l'évolution politique à travers ses fils qu'on connaît, les Ernest Wangé, on va dire Abel Kingé, mon grand-père surtout, il s'appelait Albert Kenyé, originaire de Foukoui. Donc je suis le descendant, c'est pourquoi je suis né à Edea. Mes parents qui fuyaient la guerre et se sont retrouvés à Edea et je suis né là-bas. Donc sur le plan social, comme je vous le disais, nous avons une organisation communautaire, nous aimons vivre en famille, vivre en communauté. On connaît nos tontines qui sont devenues une référence à travers l'Afrique et même dans le monde. Il n'y a plus un peuple au monde aujourd'hui où les populations ne font plus de tontines. Ça aussi, c'est l'apport des hommes de l'Ouest. Bon. Seulement, les combats au niveau politique sont un peu mitigés parce qu'on a eu, à certains moments de l'histoire, ceux qui luttaient pour le nationalisme et en même temps, certains fils de l'Ouest participaient au contre-combat en faveur des colons. Et on a évolué ainsi jusqu'à ce que nous nous sommes retrouvés dans les années 90, quand il fallait faire les luttes pour le retour au multipartisme. C'est toujours les gens de l'Ouest qui étaient en tête de file des combats à travers le principal parti de l'opposition de l'époque et aujourd'hui, le SDF. Et à l'époque, on parlait des anglo-bamis. Et ce qui s'est ensuivi après, c'est que le gouvernement de Paul Biya, qui n'a jamais rien fait de bon depuis que ce pays existe, a exploité tous les conflits et les différentes oppositions qu'il y avait entre les fils de l'Ouest pour les opposer aux autres peuples du Cameroun. Et chaque fois qu'on est à la veille des élections, on trouve toujours qu'on réveille le tribalisme pour agiter comme un mouvement de division. Donc, je ne vais pas aller loin pour la première prise de parole, mais il était important pour moi de noter surtout l'impact de l'homme de l'Ouest dans l'avènement du régime RDPC au Cameroun dans toute sa forme. Merci.
Thank you, Michelle. I think we're really gonna drill down into those specifics as far as the importance of the West region with regards to Cameroon. Uh, Nestor, can you give us your brief thoughts for the intro before we get to our permanent consultant, Kenneth?
Thank you very much for inviting me. I will say good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to be participating to this session for the first time this year. Last year, I was part of this show for a few times. So today you are talking about the West region of our country, trying to see what the government did in comparison to other region country. I will clearly say it is the same thing. What happened is Mr. Bia Paul decided to use instrumentalization as a tool to maintain himself in power. In doing so, he decided to locate few individuals that will alienate the citizens of wherever they are, the north, the south, the east, west, and make sure that they alienate the citizens and distract them from accountability. That's why we don't have any security anywhere in Cameroon. That's why we don't have a good health system. That's why we have a very poor education. That's why there is a significant lack of infrastructure everywhere in the country. It is not only the west part of the country. At this time, I think we should be really considering looking at who is accountable for the current temperature of any region of the country. It is one person, Mr. Biapol, because the people that he appointed from any region, every regions, were doing exactly what he wanted them to do, to keep the population down, to make them look like fools, and to make sure that they are moving towards zero as the world is moving forward, opposite direction. That's my introduction for now.
And thank you, Nestor. Kenneth, I think we're just gonna dive into the discussions. Uh, Maybe you set the tone.
Yeah.
How important is the West region to Cameroon?
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Rado. So in the West region, I would say is the, let's just call them the economic operators of Cameroon. Sort of like how you can argue and say you have the Jewish community in most Western countries. Um, the Western province has, I think it's 8 divisions: Bambutus, Konghi, Haut Plateau, Noun, Mifi, and so on. And they are generally referred to as Bamileke. And the typical Bamileke man is a very hard-working man, and they are thriving within the business community. And they are thriving for maybe several traits that they have. They are known to be very scrupulous, and also because of that scrupulousness, you tend to save a lot of money through the Njangi or tontine systems, as they call it. Characteristic in the West as well, we had very wonderful football teams such as Rasamba Fusam, Federal Fumban, and so on and so forth. A lot of people seem to say, okay, well, why is it that we only have businessmen from the Western province who are wealthy? There's some history to that because you had the genocide in the Bamileke region just before independence and shortly thereafter. So I think some Amadou Ahijo, through his Minister of Commerce, the name is escaping me, but he later was DG of Khmer. They gave out a lot of business, let's just say businesses or wanting to start up, kick up the Cameroon economy after independence. So quite a good number of people from the western region were compensated, if you will, if I can put it that way, via the Ministry of Commerce in those days to start businesses. And I think the rest is history. We are where we are today. Now, politically, again, UPC in those days was started by people like Jumesi, as well as Ruben Umnyobe, Ernest Wandi, and so on. And then, of course, you had Monsignor Dongmo, who was also, was he from the West, I think? Monsignor Dongmo. Yeah, he's from the West. Chang, And then the former capital, thanks, you mentioned Chang, the former capital of Cameroon was actually in Chang. And then we had the Sultanate of Fumban. And then if we go deeply into history, well, most people from the Western province are descended from Egypt, and they actually do have a pharaonic heritage. That's why there's a lot of markings in their cloth, which, if you go to the pyramids in Egypt, you're going to see some of those markings there. And that is where people from the western province of Cameroon originated.
Oh, thank you, Kenneth. Michelle, yes. I think I'm going to come back to you with that same question. How important is the western region to that nation called Cameroon? I think Kenneth had tried to look at politics, had tried to look at the economic backbone of the country with regards to business. But if we're looking at that region, if you're talking to somebody who is not knowledgeable about the region, we understand, and for some of us who are from Cameroon, about the strong cultural ties, the business ties. A lot of people, I think, of the younger generation don't really know the role that the West region has played as far as the political evolution of that country is concerned. Because if you look at from the 1950s through the 60s with the UPC, NS1D, and co, and then even in the 1990s, a lot of the political capital from for the SDF came from the West region. And then fast forward to the 2008, 2018, MROC draws a lot of its support from the West region.
Yes.
Significantly, the West region seems or comes across as an opposition bastion against the regime in Yaoundé. What really makes this region unique?
Bon, merci de me poser cette importante question. C'est que il faudrait, c'était dans la région de l'Ouest où nous avons perdu plus de 430 000 âmes. Et la région de l'Ouest avait été bombardée au napalm, c'est-à-dire que les colons français, ayant perdu la guerre d'Indochine, ils se sont repliés en Algérie. Ils ont été battus par le FLN et ont voulu se venger sur le Cameroun parce que Ahidjo les avait invités. Et ça a fait que, avec le temps, l'homme de l'Ouest s'est replié sur lui et a gardé ces séquelles-là comme un comportement de vengeance. Je peux dire ça comme ça. Pourquoi? Parce que vous allez remarquer que, ayant subi un traumatisme comme celui-là, il était question que le combat soit pour la préservation de notre pays. C'est pourquoi il y a eu des leaders de l'Ouest Cameroun qui ont émergé sur la scène nationale, africaine et dans le monde entier. Je parlais tout à l'heure de Ernest Wandji, qui est un héros national. Il y avait aussi Félix Moumier, c'est un homme de Fumban. Et il y avait mon grand-père, comme je vous ai dit, Albert Kenyé, connu dans le maquis sous le nom de Abel King. Il a tiré Abel en suivant Abel l'Égyptien, c'est le diminutif du nom de Abel Nasser, l'Égyptien. Et puis, Kingé, c'était une façon de voiler le nom de Kenyé. Donc, dans l'UPC à l'époque, tous les leaders avaient le vrai nom, mais ils avaient le nom de guerre. Donc, il avait pris le nom de King. Et mes parents étaient encore enfants, ils ont fui, ils étaient jeunes, et ils se sont retrouvés dans les grands pôles économiques. À l'époque, il y avait la centrale hydroélectrique de DEA qui était en construction. Voilà, et on cherchait les gens là-bas pour travailler. C'est comme ça que mon père s'est retrouvé là-bas. Bon, maintenant, quand nous allions au village, nos parents nous disaient toujours tout ce qui s'était passé pendant la guerre de Maquis. On appelait ça comme ça, guerre de Maquis, parce que Maquis, c'est le nom que les colons ont donné, aux combattants, alors que chez eux, ils appelaient les révolutionnaires. Chez nous, ils ont appelé les maquisards. Donc, ça fait que nos parents avaient toujours adopté une attitude où il fallait nous préserver pour qu'on ne prenne pas le même chemin de combat, parce qu'ils ont vu ce qui s'est passé avec le napalm, un gaz qui, au contact de l'oxygène, brûlait les populations. Je vais répondre à vous.
One second. I think to help clarify our viewers, a lot of people have heard about maquisards, the Maquis. How did that name come about? What is the origination of that name? Because it didn't just fall from the sky. How did they come up with the name maquisards?
Maquisard, c'est un narratif négatif pour salir le combat que nos parents menaient. En vérité, c'était les révolutionnaires. C'était les révolutionnaires. C'est que c'est dans la langue française qu'on trouve le mot maquisard. Et ils utilisent ça pour noircir, quoi. Tous ceux qui sont contre eux. C'est un peu ça. C'est eux qui ont donné ces noms à nos combattants de l'époque. Ceux qui défendaient non seulement nos régions, mais la colonisation que les Occidentaux venaient imposer à notre région et à notre pays. C'est pourquoi ils ont refusé. Ils ont attribué à nos parents le nom de maquisard. Mais la phase où j'explique là, c'était pour vous expliquer pourquoi. Ouais, la phase que j'explique là, c'était pour vous montrer pourquoi l'homme de l'Ouest, avec le temps, s'est beaucoup impliqué dans les guerres, les luttes politiques au Cameroun. Parce qu'il garde en lui. Parce que moi-même qui suis ici, il m'arrive de parler et me fâcher parce que je connais trop de choses qui m'ont été racontées par rapport à cette guerre qui s'est passée à l'Ouest Cameroun. Nos grands-parents ne cessent jamais de nous parler, mais en nous demandant toujours de nous replier. Vous allez remarquer qu'avec le temps, tous les combats de la lutte pour le retour au multipartisme dans les années 80, 87, 90, vous savez qu'avant qu'on arrive à 90, le régime en place avait déjà commencé à organiser dans les années 1987 des débats sur l'ethnofascisme. Parce qu'ils avaient compris que en politique, les Camerounais n'étaient pas trop accrochés aux idéologies de gauche, de droite. C'est seulement deux paramètres qui guident les hommes politiques en Afrique et au Cameroun en particulier. C'est-à-dire, soit on suit quelqu'un par affinité, soit par opportunité. Ce qui fait que l'homme de l'Ouest, étant un homme intéressé ou impliqué dans les questions économiques, peut apparaître à leurs yeux comme un opportuniste. Vous avez entendu, quand on est arrivé dans les années 90, vous avez entendu surgir les problèmes anglo-bami contre Essingan. Une façon de mettre les Camerounais dans la division totale, et ils exploitent cela pour nous manipuler. En 1990, le SDF, soutenu en majorité par les fils de l'Ouest Cameroun, a gagné les élections. Mais pour arracher cette victoire, ils ont ressorti ce problème de tribalisme anglo-bamileke contre Betty ou Essingan. Et le temps qu'on lutte pour gérer cette situation, ils ont programmé leur propre victoire. Donc, si vous voyez les Camerounais aujourd'hui dans les milieux comme la Basse, dans les luttes de l'UPC, c'est tout simplement parce que l'homme de l'Ouest a été victime de l'un des plus grands génocides et les fils et petits-fils que nous sommes aujourd'hui, nous avons toujours ce sang de revanche en nous.
Thank you, Michel. Nestor, I think I would like to
Yes.
reach over to you on the same question. The importance of the West region to Cameroon politically, going back from the 1950s with the emergence of UPC and the leadership from Yobe to NS Wanji, Abel Kinger, and a whole lot of those political comrades. What has made the West region unique to the political evolution of Cameroon? And I think, like going back to what Kenneth said, the economic backbone of that country, maybe as far as business is concerned, is it, to again go back to Kenneth, due to the pacification of Ayijo, with maybe loans that were provided to people in the region, or it's because of their own entrepreneurial spirit? Because if you see, even now, most of the West people from the West region, even here in the diaspora, are business minded. So is it something that is unique to that region? Can you throw more light to that?
Yes, thank you for the question. I don't think it is unique to the region. What happened is, when these administrators in the country were departing from Cameroon, I mean the French and the British, they let Cameroonians know that the Bamileke people are not the ones you want to deal with. Why? Because they were able to realize that our traditional culture, our cultures, were getting us to stick together. There was a trust among ourselves, a trust that we inherited from our culture, not because we were bright. And the reason why we have the economic power, it is because they wanted to distract us from the real power. The real power is the political power. So they say, okay, we are going to make it easy for you economically, and then you will allow us to run the country the way we want to. It started from Mr. Aijo, and Mr. Biapol continued with the same process. It is not that we are smarter than anyone. No, hell no. Of course, we were abused. Of course, our parents were abused. There is no question about that. But people like Ernest Wanje and other politicians that you probably mentioned, they understood that the real power of any space, of any country, is not the economic power. It is the political power. That's why here in the USA, you have billionaires running to be in office. Donald Trump is a billionaire. Elon Musk is a billionaire, supporting the political power because they need that power to create significant impact. You can accumulate all the wealth you want, but at the end of the day, a political person can make it disappear like this. And that's why people from the West region are working very hard to be part of that momentum, to be part of the team making decisions. I cannot focus on the history. We need to look at what is going on now. Where is the world going? Today, we need people that understand not only the economic, but the politics, and also see others as human. The problem with Cameroon, allow, I'm measuring my word, they allowed the West region to control the economy. It was instrumentalization. And it was a way for them to prepare other Cameroonians as enemy to the West. The leadership failed to say each Cameroonian has its own talent. The leadership failed to promote self-discovery because we are all unique. If the leadership is doing the right job, the right work, everyone will prosper. economy doesn't mean west of Cameroon. No.
Michelle, hold that thought. I'm a little bit
Yes.
confused here. I mean, there is no denying the fact that the people from the West are entrepreneurial. And I don't think anyone is saying that it is because of some unique or messianic abilities that were bestowed on them by God. But there is no denying the fact. Are you attributing that it was carefully choreographed and designed by the successive regime, both by
Yes.
Aijo and the Biya junta, to
Yes.
pit Cameroonians against people from the West?
Yes. That's my perception. You can do the math. Look, look, if you go into detail, if we have to look at data to see, look at all the rich people from the West, okay, take them all and study the origin of their income, you will see the government implication there is going to be heavy. It is intentional. How can you sell groundnut and then become a billionaire? Do you believe in that? Seriously?
Of
Huh?
course not. Yeah.
Come
Well,
on,
you
Mr.
can see
Kabea.
where you can sell granules and become a millionaire. Dangote
And
is telling
they're
you his father was an
billionaires.
agro businessman, so he sold granules. It
But
depends on the quantity and the scale of those granules in the store. Kenneth, I think you should
come
weigh
on.
in here. Yes,
So we
Okay.
have to be honest.
Yes.
We
let
have to
Kenneth
be
weigh in
honest.
here.
You
Let Kenneth
see,
weigh in here. I think
well, let me talk specifically a little bit about
this
Futso
this
Victor.
this entire conversation is beginning
Yeah,
to show you how unique the West region is.
indeed.
That you can give somebody peanuts and they become a millionaire.
How do you do that?
So
Well, I mean, okay. Look, that story has its origins with Mr. Futso Victor in particular. I mean, probably a few others, but I mean, growing up, I believe he was. I mean, it is true that he was a talented salesman right there with in the market in his western region. Okay, he was very talented because I've had first-hand stories of his parents when they go to the market. Futso Victor was a really talented guy. You know, he was a good he had a good sales speech. You know, forward time when he became, I don't know, maybe in his 20s, and then started like any other person hustling. I mean, I was made to understand that he approached Ahijo, and at the time, it's the French who still had the license to import, I think it's mercury or whatever chemical that does on a law, that makes the matchbox. So, I mean, he had to negotiate with Aijo to allow him to bring in those chemicals, maybe tax-free. And that is how places like, I think, Onalaw and many other places started. So, but there's no denying the fact that most of the people in the Western region were given a boost. There's I mean, people like Kaji Defotso, there's a building in Douala called the Baobab. You can imagine that building is made of concrete. And where did Kaji Defoso have money in 19, I don't know, 50 something or early 60s to get to buy that type of a building? You know, so it is true. If you look at the history of Cameroon, throughout many of these towns or cities, when they started, when the colonial powers were leaving, some of the natives benefited in one way or another. Okay. You have well, but generally speaking, let us not take it. The Bamileke are a very, very hard-working people. Take the case of Guchingo. Guchingo started Conjel Camp with one poissonnerie in Jongmelen in Yaoundé. He was still in the University of Yaoundé when he started Conjelka. And Gucci today is, I mean, my goodness, he's, I mean, well, before they ever involved him in politics, he was a multi-millionaire, multi-milliardaire. This is a guy who does streets.
Michelle, I think I am not going in any way to try to dismiss that the people from the West are extremely gifted when it comes to business. to reduce that to the mere largesse of the successive government, I think will be doing the people a disservice for their ability to, because that largesse was not limited only to the people in the West. You have the Nangas on the southwest region of the Kilos and all of them that also had the government largesse. But if you look at wherever you go in that country, even the people from the West who are now here in the diaspora, I don't think they are benefiting from any largesse from the government. But they are so immersed in business because is it something that, like you reference the cultural aspect of it, that being together, the tontine and the small business organizations that come together to source for funding. Even here in the diaspora, the government provide funding to individuals to engage in business. It depends on how astute those individuals are in managing the resources of that business. So I'll give it to the people from the West that the use what was made available to them to not only progress and develop their own areas and bring their folks together to take over business in Cameroon, but they did it with such finesse that it is something for people to emulate.
Yes.
And that is where I was trying to get into, that what really makes them unique. Michel.
Ok, il est indéniable que l'homme de l'Ouest a de façon anthropologique des comportements qui font qu'il soit un homme d'affaires, de businessman, comme on dit. Et il est aussi vrai qu'on doit reconnaître que quand il a fallu qu'on pose les premières bases de l'économie du Cameroun, beaucoup ont bénéficié de l'apport du gouvernement à travers le président Ahidjo à l'époque, qui a quand même aidé l'émergence de certains qui sont des grands noms aujourd'hui qu'on connaît sur l'espace économique du Cameroun. Mais force aussi est de reconnaître que les Bamileke, au-delà du Cameroun, à travers l'Afrique et le monde, continuent avec ce même élan de dynamisme. Et ce n'est plus le gouvernement qui les aide. C'est pourquoi je disais d'entrée de jeu qu'il y a un aspect anthropologique, culturel, qu'on a à la base. Et je vous expliquais déjà que l'histoire a fait que nous sommes partis, on a d'abord subi. Et vous savez, un peuple, quand il a... Prenez le cas du Japon, qui a connu 2 bombes. Après, ils se sont repliés sur eux-mêmes, ils se sont organisés d'une autre façon pour revenir en force sur le plan économique. Et c'est la même trajectoire avec les Bamileke. Et ça, vous pouvez observer ça très bien. Et vous remarquez que le Japon est presque la 2e économie du monde. Si, bon, je ne sais pas si c'est c'est la Chine peut-être, mais avant, c'était le Japon. Mais quand on voit l'histoire du Japon, on sait comment les 2 bombes Hiroshima et Nagasaki ont fait comme effet là-bas. C'est la même chose quand nous avons pris le Nalpam, on a dit bon, on arrête avec la politique, on va se mettre dans l'économie. On a fait des grandes plantations de café, puisque sur le plan du sous-sol, on parle du sous-sol qui a des mines, des minerais. Malheureusement, c'est très peu exploité. C'est pourquoi vous voyez, quand on a commencé à faire le chemin de fer n'est pas arrivé à l'ouest parce qu'il n'y avait pas grand-chose à extraire là-bas. Le chemin de fer allait beaucoup plus dans les zones où on fait des grandes exploitations minérales. Donc, le dynamisme du peuple Bamileke est vu une fois que quelqu'un arrive au Cameroun. La première maison en étage, il y a 75% sûr que ça appartient à un Bamileke. Ça ne souffre d'aucun doute. Tous les grands groupes médiatiques au Cameroun, c'est les Bamileke. Les grandes banques. Et qu'est-ce qu'on va dire? L'hôtellerie, il n'y a aucun secteur de l'économie où vous ne pouvez pas voir la main d'un Bamileke. Ça, c'est impossible. Et qu'est-ce que je disais? Mais ça ne veut pas dire qu'à côté, pour l'émergence du Cameroun, d'une façon où il est là, il n'y a pas eu aussi l'apport des autres. Parce que l'économie du Cameroun à sa naissance, était appuyé sur l'agriculture. Il y avait le café, le cacao, le coton, les arachides, le bois et tout ça là. Quand on part regarder tout ce qui a produit l'économie du Cameroun, tout ça là ne sortait pas de l'Ouest. Il y avait d'autres peuples qui étaient dans des plantations pour travailler et ne se faisaient pas aussi trop voir comme ça. C'est pourquoi à un moment donné, je dis souvent à nos compatriotes, vraiment, c'est notre pays, mais il faut savoir que, il faudrait qu'on sache que avant qu'on ne soit là où on est là, d'autres ont apporté, peut-être pas au même niveau, mais ils ont aussi apporté à leur niveau. Mais ce qui est sûr, comme les forces sont des grandeurs mesurables, le dynamisme économique du peuple bamileke ne souffre plus d'aucune discussion à travers le monde. Et c'est pris en exemple même par certains hommes politiques africains. On a vu des chefs d'État qui ont cité les Bamileke comme un exemple, un modèle d'organisation culturelle, économique et sociale aussi, qui fait que trop de peuples en Afrique essayent de s'identifier aux Bamileke pour se montrer à l'aune.
And Nestor,
Yes,
to
I'm
try
good.
to tie to what Michelle is saying, in as much as when
Yes,
you get down to Cameroon, the tallest
yes,
building, infrastructure,
yes,
roads in Douala and Yaoundé is owned by the Bamilekes or the people from the West region, as I would want to say it.
yes, yes.
Explain to our viewers why a lot of this economic fallout from the ingenuity of the Bamileke people seem to be concentrated in the littoral region and the center region. Because if you go down to Bafusam, there's lack of that infrastructure, the same level of infrastructural development that you see in Douala, owned by the Bamilekes, and in Yaoundé, owned by the Bamilekes, is not reflecting in the West region. You have the issue of the
Yes,
roads, you have issue of even the hotels or the major infrastructural development are completely absent. What explains this dynamic that is going on? That do they
very good.
engage in business instead of developing their own areas? They tend to develop, if at all, we consider what is happening in Douala and Yaoundé as development to a certain extent, as far as that sub-region is concerned, in their level, that is the level of development that they could boast of.
Yes, yes. So I will explain that, but I just wanted to make sure that we are on the same page here. We are talking about the root cause of where we are, the root cause of why the West people are more entrepreneurial than any other group in Cameroon. I mentioned the government effect, the government impact, and we all agree on that posture that at the beginning, the government had to push them away from politics and maintain the real power, get them the economy so that they can stay under control. So what happened is they use that economy, that money, to build an economy, to function differently. And as humans, we learn by observation. We learn by looking at what our parents are doing, not what they say. What we saw our parents doing were to sell, open stores. Even where they were professors, when they were administrators, they still had their stores, they still had their farm, they were selling. So that's how it become part of our DNA. No matter where you go, you will see a Bamileke person, even with PhDs or anything, but still have a small business. He's a small entrepreneur. That's how we started. But the government was part of it. We need to be honest. And we build that entrepreneurship muscle by observing. If you study the correlation talent and practice, you will see that practice is above. You can have that talent. There are a lot of talented people in the area of business in Cameroon. You will find them in the south, you will find them everywhere. But because they never build that muscle, they never nourish that talent, it become dead. It became dead. And people that even didn't have the calling, the business calling, the entrepreneurship calling, they end up being business people because of the government impact. We should not neglect the root, and we must be honest about it. And if we really want to look at details, we must take all those billionaires, study them one by one with honesty. Yes, if we do it that way, then we will agree with the fact that the government was part of it. Now, why is it that they are investing in places like Douala? Douala is a major port. You have the water with boat coming from overseas. You have the airport, people coming from overseas. It is easier to invest in Douala and make more profit. It is that simple. They build hotels there. They build businesses there. People are coming from all over the world to visit Douala. It is easy to get to Douala than to get to Balante or Chang. It's easier. You can just fly into Douala, stay there for 3-5 days, and go back because the airport is there and big market. The locality is very diverse, so it is attractive to businesses. It's a business strategy. Very simple.
Kenneth, I think I agree with that partially, that the accessibility to Douala could be a contributing factor. But you are here in the US. I don't think that Baltimore, for example, being a port city, is more developed than some cities that are not easily accessible. Meaning that with the financial muscle that the people from the West region command, there could as well be an airport if they want to get an airport. Because we are talking of these billionaires, they could get
It is
an
a political
airport
decision, Mr.
with,
It is a
well,
political decision to have an airport.
yes, and Nestor, I agree, but they say the person who controls the purse also controls power. If they
No,
control the financial muscles, if they control the finances of that country, business, they should have some level of control in what happens within the government. And I think if
you
you
say
look
they
at,
should, but they
like we were
don't.
talking about politics, in the early 90s, it's because they put in a lot of money in the opposition that the SDF was supposed to get the national prominence. And that gave them power. And you have a lot of these big wigs from the West who are part of the CPDM government. What has made it really difficult for them not to push for the development of that region? Is it that they are not getting exactly what they are putting in the regime in return to the development of infrastructure in the region? Or we're just going to say, oh, you know what? Because there's no seaport in Bafusam or Bangate or Chang, for example, then these areas are going to be stuck in the dark ages because of accessibility. Kenneth, what do you really think?
I think, brother, that's a catch-22, a difficult question, because in the 80s or even in the 70s, when you drove through the Western Province, you started, I don't know, maybe it was Makenene, then you start entering parts of the Western Province, you see solid earth. And you go through the third road, that the conduit that eventually, I forget whether it's N1 or N, whatever the national number of that road is. And then you get to Bafusam. Bafusam used to have a really nice main third road that went through the city, through the town center where you had the mayor and then the hotels there, some boulangeries, and then you continued to the airport. The airport was on the right-hand side. And then you continue to Mbunda. And then eventually you get into the Northwest Province, where you found the Customs Department at the border in Matazam. I mean, it's a government decision, quite frankly, to develop the roads within the different divisions. or to the governor's office, what have you, to the DO's office, the SDO's office, and so on, and then the gendarmeries, all this. I think it's a purely government decision, because at the same time you can argue and say, oh well, but somebody, I think it was Fotso Victor, who became mayor of is it Banjul also, and then
Yes.
built the mayor's office. Yeah, it's a splendid building. He built. I don't know whether the government gave him money, but if you see that of what is it, FACOM? I don't think it was money from FACOM. I believe that Fotso Victor, either he used a huge chunk of his own money to build the mayor's office in Banjul. You know, so to a certain extent, I would say if somebody like Kutch is involved in tarring of roads, why would he why would he go and tie a road when he's not going to get paid? He'll go to where he has a contract to tie a road. But if government deliberately says, okay, hey, we're not going to tie this road, well, you know, the church cannot tie that road. So,
to come back to Nestor, to Michelle,
Yes.
Kenneth, essentially, you are, I think we are trying to undermine the influence of the elites in the governing structure in Cameroon. Said the West region is a bastion of opposition, but they have prominent figures in the government that I don't believe that they have been able to use the instruments of governance to push development into the region. That is where I am trying to come from. Not that it is the responsibility of individuals to do the tarring of the road and stuff like that. If you are in a government in a high level like Foso Victor that you've mentioned, it could have been loans that the government gave for them to build that thing, but regardless, you have high individuals from the Senate president, ministers in the government from the West region. What has the government, successive regime from Ayijo to the President Junta actually done in the region? To quote the Minister of Agriculture, Kecha, Mr. Kecha, who said, Iyavekwa Bank. So our people want to know what was there before that now you can say Biya has basically not done anything in the region. Why vote for him again in 2025? So that the people in the village in Bazoo, the people in the village in the small remote villages that are not accessible by the conversations we are having here, get to know that we are entering into another critical year in Cameroon as it is at an inflection point that you're not going to deny that this election that is going to come up in October is not going to be significant. How do people actually make a determination that this is what this government has done to this region, so that for us to tell our people that go vote for this particular candidate? It has nothing to do with the opposition at this time, because definitely the opposition will have to provide their own vision of what they intend to do. But if you're going to do an evaluation, you're going to try to do an evaluation of what the current regime has done to the people in the West region.
Ok, merci. Je vais revenir un peu à la réponse que M. Kenneth a donnée tout à l'heure là, en disant que c'est une politique et une décision politique. Mais moi, je voudrais relever d'abord les facteurs qui sont à l'origine de la situation. Il y a d'abord le relief de l'Ouest Cameroun. Le relief est par nature très accidenté et c'est l'une des plus petites régions du Cameroun par rapport à sa population. C'est pourquoi vous voyez beaucoup de fils de l'Ouest à travers d'autres coins du Cameroun. Donc, et je suis d'accord avec lui quand il dit que c'est une décision politique, parce que le sous-sol de l'Ouest aussi regorge des richesses. Malheureusement, le gouvernement n'a jamais mis des processus en place pour les exploiter. Il faut savoir que jusqu'à une certaine période, les gens de l'Ouest, pour aller dans d'autres régions, devaient avoir un passeport, une autorisation de déplacement pour rejoindre d'autres coins. Et ce qui est qui est quand même un frein. Donc on les a réduits à faire juste une économie de rente, c'est-à-dire dans l'agriculture, cultiver ce qu'ils peuvent manger et un peu qu'ils peuvent exporter. Et vous savez que l'homme par nature a toujours tendance à aller vers les pôles économiques. Les pôles économiques du Cameroun, c'est les pôles où on peut produire en grande quantité et exporter facilement. Quand je parle des grands pôles économiques, c'est là où il y a le port. Il y a Douala, il y a Limbé, aussi maintenant la Kribi. Donc, n'ayant pas de grandes richesses à exporter, résultat, on n'a pas fait de grands développements là-bas. Donc, vous êtes surpris que les hommes de l'Ouest vont dans tous les coins du Cameroun, construisent des grands immeubles et à l'Ouest, il n'y a pas. Le terrain ne donne pas assez. C'est trop peu déjà même pour contenir la population. Donc, il y a moins d'espace vivant et le reste, c'est seulement pour faire les petites agricultures. Donc, si demain, un autre gouvernement arrive, comme je le veux, que ce soit celui du SDF, parce que nous avons donné une solution, c'est le fédéralisme. Le fédéralisme est la solution. Vraiment, vous ne pouvez pas dire le contraire. Dans tous les coins du monde entier, tous les pays qui se développent normalement, ce sont des pays fédéralistes. Le SDF dit aux Camerounais depuis la nuit des temps qu'il faudrait que chaque région mette en place des possibilités d'exploiter des opportunités en fonction de leur réalité, c'est-à-dire pouvoir produire ce qu'ils peuvent eux-mêmes consommer et exporter. On nous a fait cultiver le café. Mais à un moment donné, vous-même, vous avez vu qu'on coupait des plants de café. Parce que combien de Camerounais prennent le café? Combien de Camerounais? Il faut produire des choses que nous pouvons nous-mêmes transformer et vendre. Vous faisiez référence ici tout à l'heure que Baltimore à l'époque, il y a des villes qui n'ont pas de port, mais qui se développent. La Suisse aussi n'a pas de grands ports. Il y a des grands pays comme ça qui n'ont même pas accès à la mer, mais qui se développent. L'ouest du Cameroun peut se développer. L'ouest est quand même frontalier avec des régions qui ont le port, le sud-ouest par exemple. Avec là-bas, on peut faire le courant. Il y a des pays qui n'ont pas le pétrole et qui passent par des pipelines pour envoyer leur pétrole. Il y a des pays enclavés. Donc, il peut y avoir des régions enclavées. Mais l'Ouest Cameroun a des opportunités. Si nous passons par le fédéralisme que le SDF propose, chaque peuple pourra désigner les responsables pour diriger chaque région et nous allons ne faire que ce qui est utile pour nous. Faire le système d'éducation qui convient à nos populations, préserver nos cultures, notre identité, enseigner à nos populations ce qui est bien et qui peut servir comme des métiers qui peuvent faire en sorte que les fils et filles de l'Ouest émergent quand ils vont à travers le monde. Au lieu d'aller apprendre des choses comme philosophie, histoire de la France, ça ne nous sert à rien. Il est temps qu'on remette le pouvoir au peuple et c'est le SDF qui défend cette option depuis la nuit des temps. Et c'est pourquoi, si vous parlez des Camerounais quand il va arriver les élections. Mais il faut que les Camerounais viennent soutenir le SDF parce que le SDF a la solution. Le SDF a la solution et propose le fédéralisme. C'est ce que je dis.
Thank you, Michel. Nestor, back to you.
Yes.
Still in that line of argument with politics, I seem to be baffled a little bit, given the history of the West region from the 50s again, with UPC, in the early 90s with the SDF, and now with MROC and other political parties. But if you look at again, the CPDM has been steadily or slowly and steadily gaining ground in the West region. What explains this sort of dynamics? That even though the people feel abandoned and neglected and persecuted during the colonial times, even with the two successive regimes, the CPDM seems to be gaining ground or has gained ground from the 1990s to the present. What is explaining this dynamic on the ground? Is it that for those of us, the talking heads on TV, for those of us who live here in the diaspora with, in pristine environment and air-conditioned houses and offices, what is it that we don't understand that it's difficult to explain why the people who are going towards these challenges on the ground seem to see with a regime that has neglected and abandoned them for the past 43 years.
Brado, if I may add,
That would
Yeah, Nestor. Nestor, I also want to, I guess, direct this at you as well. Why is it that, in spite of President Paul Biya's father-in-law, who was from the west of region, that is Chantal Biya's
Father,
mother's
yes.
husband,
Mhm.
who was from the west, why is it that, yes, why is it that the ruling elite, the coterie in power, the Fang Beti Bulu, why
Yes.
these Yilembeyezum people, why are they still trying to use the tribalistic card against the Bamileke? Why?
Very good. I appreciate both questions, but I want to start with the Mr. Tabenyang question first. And I will say I disagree with his assessment because we don't have the data. The CPDM is not gaining momentum in the West region. Hell no. All you need to do is to conduct a survey, okay? Or you can look at the data. Let us consider 2018, where Professor Kamto won nationwide. 7 out of 10 voters voted in favor of Professor Kamto, and Mr. Biapol stole the elections. These are facts, and we need to be speaking to people based on fact. The CPDM is weak. The CPDM has no ground in Cameroon. It is now a small mafia trying to maintain themselves in power. Now, coming to the question of a consultant, why is it that they are still using tribalism to maintain themselves in power? It is a management technique, management by silos. You divide people and you make each group look like you are the enemy of that group, you are the enemy of that group, and then you maintain yourself in power. Management by silos, it is in the books. Mr. Biapol used tribes to divide Cameroonians. He said, okay, if you are from the West, you will never have the political power. That's where all the power is. If you are from his tribe, he will appoint some people there to alienate you, make it sound like he loves you, but there's no investment. You don't have access to water, you don't have access to electricity, no road infrastructure, no hospitals. And then they make it sound like it is because of people of the West region that you don't have all the things mentioned above: no security, no education, no water, blah 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 blah. And when he's making appointment, he's appointing people from his area. Look at the subdivisional officers, the divisional officers, the governors, the ministers, the director of major corporations. They are all from his area because he wants to alienate Cameroonians. And now we are mindful of that. We understand his management tool, and we are now determined to do what we did with Mr. Chairman, the late John Frunji, with what we did in 2018 with Mr. Maurice Kamto, with Professor Kamto. And in October 2025, Cameroon will have a new president chosen by Cameroonians. Because what we were able to establish during all this time was to learn about our shortcomings, was to learn about our belongings. Are we really Cameroonians? Is there any Cameroonian above another one? The answer is no. No one Cameroonian is above another one.
That
And
is
we are
certainly,
going to, yes,
Nestor, that's certainly very true. And in a country that respects the rule of law, it is easier for you to say what you're saying. History also teaches us. I know you're saying that we don't want to pay a lot of attention with history, but the reason why, even if you are driving, there is a rear view mirror, is to tell you once in a while, look at what is happening behind you. That in as much as you
true.
don't want to pay attention to what is happening behind you, it is important for you to watch what is happening behind you.
From
In
time
that
to time.
1990 that you're talking about, all of
Yes.
these things were in play. The regime still stole the election. In
Yes.
2018, they still
They stole.
stole the election. Presently, nothing has changed because whatever you have
No.
learned throughout those number of years, as far as the election machinery in the country, starting with the LECAM, has not changed. There is really nothing that you're going to say, okay, people are going to vote. Here, the last time I mentioned about Venezuela, they voted Maduro out
Maduro.
with 58%. Maduro is still the president. In Belarus,
Mr.
they
Mr.
voted
Tabea.
the guy in Belarus out. The guy is still the president. So,
Mr.
except
Tabea.
you have something that you're going to convince Cameroonians to say, hey, listen,
Yes.
this is what transpired. We have learned to say either they're going to start by the release of the electoral list, which they have adamantly refused not to do. Who is appointing people to the electoral commission, which BIA is the same one say doing that. The constitutional council or
Council,
whatever
conseil, yeah,
takes cases is shifting responsibility and playing the chess game. So it is very hard for us to, like I said, sit over here and think that things are going to just change by
Allow me.
themselves. What is
Allow
it?
me. Allow
My
me.
question was, if I pointed to the fact that the CPDM is gaining grounds, not only in the West region, in the Northwest region, for example, even if we know it's by fraud, they are the people representing these regions. There is no one arguing that that regime is not rotten to the core. It is rotten to the core. But they are the ones, if you go to the bicentennial or whatever they call it, the National Assembly, Kenneth, who are the representatives of the people. In the Northwest region, majority is the CPDM. In the West region, I think right now, majority is still the CPDM. So that was my question that I'm asking, that what is it that these people don't understand, the grassroots don't understand, even though we know that the vote doesn't really count? What is it that we're going to do differently, Michel?
Bon, vraiment, c'est une question très pertinente. Je disais d'entrée de jeu que les Camerounais, comme beaucoup d'Africains en général, n'apprennent pas la politique par idéologie. Comme chez les autres, on parle de la gauche, d'autres, on parle de la droite, c'est-à-dire communistes, capitalistes, socialistes, libéral. Non, on ne connaît pas ça beaucoup. On a juste par affinité. C'est-à-dire que c'est mon frère qui est là-bas, je dois le voter. C'est pourquoi vous allez vous remarquer que chaque fois qu'il y a les élections, la plupart des gens ont tendance à voter en fonction de la tête ou de l'ethnie de la personne qui est devant. Je pourrais vous montrer ça par les dernières élections où on a déclaré que Paul Biya a gagné 53 départements. Maintenant, les autres candidats, il y a Kamto qui a eu 3 à l'ouest, Cabral Libi a eu une victoire comment dire, dans le Nyon Ekele. Bon. Et je disais que la deuxième chose, c'est par opportunité. C'est-à-dire que quand tu regardes, ce n'est pas ton frère. Tu regardes les intérêts que tu peux avoir derrière, tu le suis. Vous voyez, les Camerounais, parfois, étonnent tout le monde. C'est-à-dire, pendant 5 ans, 7 ans, le régime ne vous a rien produit. Mais il suffit qu'on vienne à la dernière minute. Quelques boîtes de sardines, quelques pains chargés, quelques tissus. On dit Paul Biya Ayop. Et directement, vous oubliez toute la galère. Vous oubliez que vos enfants ne vont pas à l'école. Que vous n'avez pas de route. Que vous ne mangez pas. Que le père ou la mère n'a pas de salaire. Et directement, on oublie ça. Ce sont les deux paramètres-là qui nous tuent. Pourquoi? Parce qu'on a longtemps distrait les Camerounais avec les problèmes de tribalisme. On a fait tout pour que les Camerounais ne s'aiment pas. Ou alors qu'on se regarde avec un œil. Et malheureusement, ça ne marche pas parce qu'on a une population qui est d'abord une mosaïque des ethnies qu'on a superposées. C'est-à-dire que si tu regardes nos identités culturelles, l'homme de l'Ouest n'a rien à voir avec l'homme de l'extrême Nord. On n'a pas la même identité. L'homme de l'Est ne ressemble pas à l'homme du littoral. C'est les habitudes qui sont différentes. On a exploité la tribalité, parce que ça, il y a une différence entre le tribalisme et la tribalité. C'est-à-dire quoi? La tribalité, c'est quoi? C'est que je préfère en général ce qui est de moi. Ce que tu ne peux pas demander à un homme du Nord-Ouest de dire, tu ne peux pas pousser un homme du Nord-Ouest à dire que le Ndolé est plus bon que le Hachou. Ça, c'est ce que chacun défend à peu près son air culturel. Mais le régime RDPC, depuis même UC, UNC, RDPC à Idjo, ils ont exploité les petits conflits qu'ils ont introduits quand ils ont commencé à nous coloniser, à vouloir démontrer que non, l'autre est différent de l'autre. Ils sortent ça chaque fois à la veille des élections. Comme je vous ai bien dit que en 90, on a commencé Anglo-Bami, ethnofascisme contre Boulou, Betty. Aujourd'hui, c'est anti-Bamileke contre Boulou. Donc, ce sont les gènes que le régime de Paul Biya, qui n'a jamais rien produit de bon et qui ne veut rien faire et veut toujours se maintenir au pouvoir, continue à mettre en exergue pour cogner la tête des Camerounais. Donc, moi, je vous demande, la question, comme je dis, elle est pertinente. Qu'est-ce qu'on va dire aux gens pour avoir leur voix? C'est votre question. Moi, je vous dis et je le répète, le SDF est le seul parti politique qui a un programme clair et a déjà proposé aux Camerounais depuis la nuit des temps. Tant que nous n'allons pas vers le fédéralisme, il n'y a pas de solution. N'attendez pas le messianisme, c'est de la folie. Même Jésus a promis revenir sur terre, il n'est plus revenu. Vous comptez sur des êtres humains, ils vont vous trahir à tout moment. Il faut compter sur des visions. La vision fédéraliste est la solution pour sauver le Cameroun. C'est ce que je dis.
Thank you, Michel. Kenneth,
Yeah.
In 1990, it was Albert Zunga from the West
Un trait
region
bien.
who, as he has admitted lately on social media platforms, that the decision not to allow Frundi to be declared winner in the 1992 presidential elections, he claims ownership, and I think he mentioned a couple of them. Recently, you saw another elite from the West region, Elimi Lobe,
Yes.
going after one of the heroes of independence,
Ernest Wanji.
Ernest Wanji. Is it the strategy that both Michel and Nestor have referenced, the divide and rule tactic of the regime, to use individuals from within, from some of these regions, to destabilize not only the region but the entire country?
I would say yes, and there's a historical precedent to it, because when the Germans were in Cameroon, a lot of that did not happen. Okay, and then we saw much of that happen later on when the French actually occupied the territories, whether we call it a colony or a League of Nations mandate, what have you. But anyway, so yeah, what Albert Zonga said, which was very true, is very regrettable. And this ties in with this, our whole Anglophone and Francophone problem. Because you have the Francophone elite who make up a tiny, in fact, it is the Francophone elite who make up a tiny, I wouldn't say majority, I'm looking for the word, a tiny minority. Because if you think about it critically, the majority of Cameroonians voted for Undi. But this Francophone elite, they got together and they said no, including Adamun Damjoya. Including Adamun Damjoya. And then you see, we've talked about quite a few things here about the Bamileke region, which it's a stark reminder of the fact that, people actually forget their history. Okay, because if you think about it critically, why would an Albert Zongang and or a Ndamjoya, I don't know, whoever else they were with, prefer because ethnically a Frundi who comes from Bamenda, ethnically, and the Esingang folks are right. The Frundi and the Zongangs and whoever, they fall into this same. In fact, they are of the same ethnicity. It's the same people, as opposed to the Pawin on the other side. Which brings me a little bit to one or two things I wanted to mention earlier. The Eton, who are in or assumed to be Fang Betibulu, the Eton have origins in the Western Province. The Eton are not Beti as such. Their origins are in the Western Province. But coming back to what we are saying, Brado, in terms of politics and economy, you see, the France, and I think this has been well documented by Louis Paul Ojula, Bramadier, and all these PMS men, and all them people. They had written and stated clearly that the Bamileke in Cameroon are like the Jews, and that the Bamileke have this real national consciousness of a nation. So it was necessary that, in fact, according to them, a Bamileke should never have political power in Cameroon. And they took away that power and then gave it to people whom they found really malleable that they could manipulate, such as Amadou Ahijo. And then, of course, the continuation of what we have today, who was working for the French intelligence service, Paul Biya. That is why this guy is a continuation of the utter nonsense that started in 1960 with Amadou Ahijo when they pushed out Andre Marimbida. So you have a situation here where the people from the West have been given, well, that economic power that they have, and then politically, they have been systematically excluded from political power. I'll give you another example that we're even talking about. When Nyan Jifenji, Paul Biya's friend of Sonel in those days, when, was it Sonel? Oh, yes, Sonel. It was Sonel. When Nyan Jifenji became Speaker of the Senate, there was no senator from the Western Province. They had excluded the Senate list from the Western Province. And then it was only, I believe, those who could be nominated. And Nyan Jifenji, who now became the president, there was no voted senator from there. So you can see that the Paul Biya government regime, continuation of Ahijo, politically is always doing everything to exclude the Western Province. And they even continued this. In fact, if I can add the Bassa, they divided the Bassa into 3 regions. The Bassa are in, I don't know, the Bassa are in the Center Province, I don't know, maybe part of the Western Province, and then in the Littoral. And Southwest, part of the Southwest. So the government administratively gerrymandering and then, put the Bassas all over the place, so that they are not a single unit, because these are the folks who were fighting for independence.
Nestor, back to that same question that I earlier asked. What explains this whole thing that you have Zongang in the 90s and now you have Elimbi Lobe in the 2000s, almost doing the same thing in trying to undermine the aspiration of their own people. Elimbi Lobe has excoriated NS Wanji, and to the point of calling him on national TV that he was a bandit. Zongang has admitted that he was instrumental in Frundi not being declared winner of the elections in the 90s. How has the government effectively used the divide and rule tactic, the patronage system, to use people within some of these regions, not only to undermine the development in this region, but to destabilize the national political aspiration of people of the same lineage?
They have been very efficient in doing so. The intent here is to maintain themselves in power because as we are fighting, they will say, look, Boko Haram, 36,000 Cameroonians dead. No one is saying nothing. The NOZO, the Northwest and Southwest issue, more than 6,000, more than 80,000 displaced, more than 6,000 dead, according to the data available to everyone. No one is saying anything. They kill humanity in Cameroonians. They become heartless and soulless. Now let us go back to 1990 when the chairman won and the Zongan decided to make it impossible for him to run the country. Look, there were people from all parts of the country that took this to the court. I remember Barrister Muna saying that he took it to the court and the chairman said, don't follow up. So it is a question that we need to come. Why did the late chairman say, do not move forward, do not press the charges in the court? What Albert Zongan did was wrong. But why was he afraid to press the charges so that he can be the president? We wanted him to be the president. We voted for him. And then he said, don't go to the court. So the common denominator between that time and now, or let's say before 2025, is that people were afraid. People were less accountable to how the public good is managed. And you asked a question earlier, you say, what changed? What do I have to explain to our viewers that October 2025 will be different from the last sessions? What changed is people are more self-accountable. They understand that they have the right to question the way they are managing public good. They see how they are going to college, they graduate, and no jobs, no opportunities. They are able to see tribalism in practice. They're not divisional officers, ministers, cabinet members, CEOs of major corporations from the same ethnic group. And those groups are having the same issues as other groups within the country. No access to water, no access to electricity, no road infrastructure, no medical infrastructure. So we are sick and tired, and we are ready to take it on the street if they fail to respect our vote. It wasn't the case during the past years. It was never the case. Today, 8 out of 10 Cameroonians is 36 years old or below. The country is young. They have the energy. They can throw stone, they can hold machetes, and they can say, we are sick and tired of these practices. You spoke about driving forward and looking at the rearview mirror. Yeah, it's okay. We will be looking at the rearview mirror from time to time and say, we allow this to happen, this time we will not. Because if we focus on the rearview mirror, we will commit a lot of accidents. That's why I'm asking people to look forward, to focus on the challenge ahead. And from time to time, look at that rearview mirror, but don't focus on it. It will waste our time and energy. Most people during debate are focusing on the rearview mirror, and it is not helping. The key here is to make it clear to each and every single Cameroonian that if we choose a person to run our country, to run the public good, we will know where we are spending our money on, and we will understand the policy of reducing vulnerability, the policy of reducing poverty We will be part of it. Yes, because it is our money. We will be able to fire them and hire them. Those are the new things that we all have in mind. And that's why I'm so optimistic. I'm so positive that 2025, October 2025 is the date that everything will be over. We will sit down and enjoy a new country with inclusion, not division. Everyone count, everyone matters. Well, when you kill one Cameroonians, the president is talking to other Cameroonians saying killing is not good. Mr. Biapol, just based on public statistics, public data, taking Amnesty International, taking Human Rights Watch, he was supposed to be talking about the relevance of seeing every Cameroonian as a human being at least 50,000 times, because we lost 36,000 from Boko Haram, documented, more than 6,000 from the Nozo, documented. So if you add those two numbers, that's more than 42,000 times. The president was supposed to be talking to the world more than 42,000 times, calling on humanism, calling on human dignity. He failed to do so.
All
And
right.
trust me, let them try, then you will see the difference.
Thank
We
you,
are ready. We are ready.
Electoral. I think
Yes.
I have been taken aback by the passion and the emotional way that you embodied the need for change in Cameroon. But I would want to remind you, I think our closing up remarks here, that there have been a people in that country who felt the same way you feel right now, that they said, we have had enough. And these are the people that you reference as no. So the people from the northwest and southwest regions who, after 63 years of being taken for granted and considered as second-class citizens in that contraption called Cameroon, decided that we have had enough. We cannot be taken for granted. And they started by going out in the protest that you are calling for with branches, with peace branches. And the government came down with reckless abandon on these peaceful demonstrators with gunships, and had killed, is continuing to kill. I think you say 6,000. That is a number that has not changed for 8 years.
Documented.
There are about 1 million people displaced internally, about 100 and something thousand in the neighboring countries. The leadership of that of the southern Cameroons are still in the dungeons in Yaoundé. It baffles me why you think that those same people that Michelle is saying, when you come in with a boulangerie and sardine and rice and beans from Dop or patat from your west region, everything just seems to be okay. I'm trying to understand how these people are going to wake up overnight, because we have not seen these people even care to say, wait a minute, the people from the southern Cameroons, or what you call the southwest and northwest region, the things that we are suffering, these are the things that they have suffered. Even though historically there is some need for differentiation to be established, but some of these difficulties that they have gone through are what we have gone through for 8 years. It's beyond comprehension that the people from the West region who sought refuge in the Southwest and Northwest region during the Maquis time have not as much stood up to say, wait a minute. I know not all of them. I'm not going to say all of them. There are some rational ones, like what you're saying, Michelle here have articulated earlier, to say this is wrong and we can not continue to allow our brothers and sisters be killed with complete disregard of human dignity or be treated the way they have been treated. What is it that we need to do? Because if you listen to the opposition manifestos, a lot of them are really just saying, oh, they have to end the war. Ending the war is not the problem without you identifying or addressing the root cause of that war. So it will be important for us as we engage in conversations like this every day to make sure that we do not forget, like you mentioned, the people from Boko Haram, almost 36, 40,000 dead, and with the difficulties of even keeping statistics in that part of the world, there is no way you're going to say just 36,000 people that were killed during Boko Haram. Way more than that. In the southwest, northwest region, way more than that, because you have villages in remote places like Akwaya, in Lebialam, in even Dian, that is difficult for you to even account for the number of people who are in these areas. So it is important that as we look into these regions, let's begin to look at things that we collectively can take to use and to fight the regime. So I am going to, for the closing remark, go to Michel for his final thoughts, then Nestor, and then finally Kenneth.
Merci une fois de plus. Vraiment, c'est quand je suis sur ce plateau, j'ai toujours la chance d'être dans un moment qui m'est particulier parce que ça me donne l'opportunité de dire aux Camerounais et au monde entier ce qui est de notre pays, de l'Afrique et quelquefois le regard que nous, Africains, nous portons aux problèmes du monde. Il faut savoir que dans les problèmes que nous connaissons au Cameroun, généralement, la région ou alors les peuples de l'Ouest et Bassa sont ceux qui ont le plus perdu dans les luttes d'indépendance. Et malheureusement, les colons ont remis le pouvoir à ceux qui n'avaient pratiquement, ou peu, parce qu'on va dire il y avait quand même les Sendé Ofana dans la lutte nationaliste. Ouais. Sendé Ofana dans la lutte nationaliste. Il y a plein de comme ça, le commandant Kisamba et consort, on sait. Il y avait beaucoup de peuples aussi. Mais quand il a fallu subir les conséquences de cette lutte, vraiment, ce sont les régions Bamileke et Bassa qui en ont payé les prix. Aujourd'hui, les Bamileke et les Bassa luttent pour au moins que la vraie indépendance qui devait être au Cameroun soit. On ne peut pas ignorer que toutes les régions du Cameroun ont des problèmes. On sait par exemple que dans les régions anglophones du nord-ouest et sud-ouest, il y a le fait que depuis que le Cameroun existe, on a déjà eu un président de l'extrême nord, du Grand Nord, un président du Grand Sud, et c'est tout à fait normal que le troisième président du Cameroun soit quand même qui vient de cette région. Et comme je vous disais, le SDF a toujours des solutions. Et c'est pourquoi, lors de notre dernier congrès, on a conduit encore un fils du Sud-Ouest, en la personne de l'honorable Chief Joshua aussi, qui sera le porte-étendard du SDF à la prochaine élection présidentielle. C'est une façon de vous dire que le SDF est à l'écoute du peuple, a les solutions pour le peuple. C'est pourquoi nous demandons qu'on remette le pouvoir au peuple. Donc, vous pouvez me demander aujourd'hui quelles sont les solutions. J'ai passé toute la soirée à vous les énumérer. Et il faut le fédéralisme. Il faut qu'il y ait un troisième président qui soit originaire des régions du sud-ouest et du nord-ouest. On avait d'abord essayé avec John Frundi, qui était du nord-ouest. On a maintenant un fils du sud-ouest. Et on peut faire une démocratie consensuelle au Cameroun. Dans beaucoup de pays, on a vu quand il y avait des conflits dans les populations. Je prends le cas le plus proche, le cas du Nigeria. Là-bas, il y a un temps, le président, il est musulman. Il fait 1 ou 2 mandats. Le vice-président est chrétien. Après, on change. C'est leur façon de faire la démocratie. Nous pouvons faire une démocratie consensuelle de telle manière que la présidence soit tournante entre les régions. Et avant d'y arriver, il faut qu'on commence par le fédéralisme avec des gouverneurs élus, les maires élus, et comme ça va être un début. Et on pourra sortir notre pays et l'arrimer dans toutes les formes d'évolution qu'on trouve dans le monde d'aujourd'hui.
Thank you, Michel. I think we're running out
Merci
of time.
beaucoup pour.
Thank you, Michel. I know you're very passionate. It's election time. Nestor, thank you for accepting the invitation to be with us this afternoon. Your final thoughts, please.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to share this platform with everyone. My final thought, I just want Cameroonians to understand that we were all born the same way, naked, speechless, and dumb. We need to understand that no one chose the color of their skin, no one chose their tribe, no one chose their family. We are all Cameroonians because we were born there. No one Cameroonian is above another one. So it is a self accountability to question the way public good is being managed. Self accountability. You don't have to hide behind anyone. It is your responsibility. Take ownership of your life by being responsible of your own transformation and the improvement of your society, your community. No one should blame you from that. I know for years the system distracted you from being self accountable and accountable to your community. It is time for you to take back your power and be you, a true Cameroonian, and ask yourself the question, why am I quiet? In this improvement process, am I a spectator or a participant? I hope most of you will say I am a participant because it is a personal responsibility. Do not be afraid. All we expect in October 2025 is to allow the respect of the electoral process from enrollment to vote to controlling the vote and to defend the vote. It is a right. It is a Cameroonian right. It is a human right. And no one has the right to stay between you and the constraint of transparency and responsibility of that process. All
Thank
we
you.
need is honesty. We are
Thank you,
not
Michel.
asking for any personal favor.
Thank you, Nestor. I
Let's
think
get together and build a way and
Nestor
better Cameroon.
Nestor is an independent management consultant and a life coach. He can coach you to do anything. I am really honored that you answered the call to really give us an insight, a knowledge of the political and the complex situation in Cameroon. Kenneth, any final thoughts? Please
Yes,
make
of
it short.
course. Yes, I'll make it really short. I want to go through one or two, well, a few fun facts about people from the West, the Bamileke as a whole, which is people throughout the national territory of Cameroon. Say, there's one or two fun facts. For example, you have, they say, oh, in the Western province, the Bamileke do not sell land. We don't know how far that is true, but that is a perception, you know. Another fun fact, they talk about when we were little, they talked about famla. Famla is witchcraft, and it is claimed that a lot of the Bamileke do famla. We don't know. Anyway, the Brigade Anti-Sadina, even though a national movement, but it is perceived or claimed that the Brigade Anti-Sadina are mostly of the Bamileke. Some famous sons of the Western Province, you have people like Thomas Dakai Kamga, who became a minister, I think, at 20-something years old. Joseph Fofier, in spite of being a dentist, his friend Paul Biya made him minister of sports. It's a very strange phenomenon. And then today, you have Monsieur Jean Kwete, who is the Secretary General, believe it or not, of CPDM. But we always hear about Jacques Famen Dongo and the other one, Grégoire. And I don't know whether they've usurped Jean Kwete's power Anyway, finally, another fun fact. The Bamileke have a tradition, they call it Dongto, which the skull of the dead, which they consult or rebury or wash and what have you. Now, you may want to know that this has its origins in ancient Egypt. And if you go back deep in it, you'll look at the Freemasonic Society, the Masons, who were builders. Mason just means builder. And some of these cultural aspects, they date back to ancient Egypt. Now, finally, Brado, without taking too much time, I think, you see, Amado Ahijo had 5-year development plans, which Paul Biya completely abandoned. And there's, if you go to the Western province, like Michelle and Nestor mentioned earlier, the terrain there is really, really rough. And you would want to know that it only takes a very hard working set of people. Way before independence, trust me. With that very rough terrain, even to get food, I think the natural food of the Bamileke is some drawy food called kui. So you would, in fact, it is very difficult I mean, you ask yourself, how could they eat a plant, a very funny plant, if my memory is serving me right in Kui. So Amado Ahijo had these national development things which Paul Biya completely abandoned, and to explore the talent that we have in Cameroon, it only behooves the next president to come up with some type of national development policy like we have here in the West, where you have the airline industry here, you have the computer industry here, you have satellite industry there, you have, maybe expand UCAO, the coffee and cocoa industry, and so on, And then you have to look into organizations like the Economic and Social Council, where somebody like Ayang Luk has been there since 1984, and we don't even know when the last time he held a meeting was. So a truly national development thing for the next president would usher in development of the Western province and all regions in Cameroon.
Thank you, Kenneth. Thank you, Michelle, and thank you to Nestor. I also want to thank our viewers all across the globe. I think I do agree with a lot of the conversations this evening, but at the end of the day, before we begin to have this conversation, there is a need for a national dialogue, an inclusive dialogue for us to really determine whether the present dispensation in Cameroon is something that we want to continue with. Certainly the people from the southern Cameroons have made it very clear that they've had enough and they cannot stomach the way they have been treated. So I think that a lot of these brilliant ideas that we have when we at media platforms and in conversation studios across the globe, because you have so many people having these conversations now, it is imperative that there is a need for an all-inclusive dialogue in that country to look at some of the root causes of the malaise that that country is facing. Without that, we can get a new president in. Look at what happened in '82 when Biya came in and bamboozled the people with rigor and moralization. The New Deal that he got from whatever he got that from the US and stuff like that. A lot of people were excited. But what did not change was the system that was put in place by Ahijo, the system of patronage and about divide and rule, the regionalization and all of this stuff that transpired. So it is very, very important that in as much as people are seeking for change, what type of change do we really want? Is it just changing the person at the helm, or looking at addressing some of these root causes that have been entrenched in the system? The system, the most corrupt system that you can ever find in the face of the planet, not because of the doing of the people, but because of a system that has been put in place by the political elites, and that has caused that country to degenerate to what it is now. So thank you again, and hope you would be with us next weekend as we look into the Northwest region. I know we're going to have a conversation with the parties and their representative. I know that will be very explosive as nobody is going to hold back their punches. It's political season, and I think we will bring a lot of excitement. Once again, thank you, and I want to thank my studio crew, the DT, and the entire staff for always making sure that we get this conversation brought to your phones and to your TVs and to your handheld devices. Again, thank you. My name is Tabenyang Echu for the spotlight. Thank you and good night.
Good night.
All right.